Hey, this is Henry. So what we're going to be doing today is have a basic understanding of how to use Microsoft 365. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how exactly you can navigate through the Microsoft 365 interface. Second, we're going to learn how to share files with OneDrive and SharePoint and a little bit about Teams. And then we're going to finally learn how to sync our Microsoft 365 environment with our local computer. So in the next section, we're going to be talking about navigating through the Microsoft 365 interface. Alright, so when you sign into your Office 365 apps, the first thing you're going to notice is this homepage over here. So just like how you can access your Outlook and OneDrive, Word, Excel, PowerPoint on your local computer, you can do the same exact thing on the web as well. You can see I already pre-opened my OneDrive over here, but it essentially has a slightly different interface, but it has the same exact functionality plus more. And we're going to be talking about this a little bit more in the next section. So just like how we can access our apps, you can see over here that we can access all of our apps that were provided from your company and from the admin as well. So in the middle section, you're going to notice that this is really more for convenience. It basically contains all your files from your OneDrive and also all the files that were shared with you. And you can also have an easy way to instantly create new documents, spreadsheet presentation, etc. And you can also upload files from your own personal computer. And whenever you upload or create something new, it instantly adds it into your OneDrive. So for example, if I wanted to instantly create a new document like so, it's going to instantly transfer me to my Word editor, just like how you access it on your own local computer. And you can see that I can already start working on it. I can change the title. And the thing that's really cool about this is that it instantly saves it when I close the tab over here. So if I were to X this thing over here, like so, you're going to see that it instantly adds a document inside there just now, and I can go over to my OneDrive and see that this has just been added a few seconds ago. Alright, so in the top part over here, you're going to see that we have the search bar. The search bar acts like the Google for your company. It keeps track of all of the different documents that you're trying to find, your sites, your contacts, and so much more. So for example, when I click on this over here, you're going to see that it provides me all of the apps I can access, my files, the people, the sites, and so much more. And over here on my right side, you can see that this provides me an access to configuring my settings. So on the gear sign, you can change up your themes, your language and time zone, dark mode, change your password, change your contact preference. This is where you're going to be signing out over here. And this is recently added by Microsoft 365, where essentially it connects to your Outlook calendar to give you a high overview of what's happening for this week. And you can also add to-dos to see what exactly needs to get done for that particular week. Now you're going to notice that I use this thing a lot, which is Install Office. And this is really more for people that have a business standard license. If you have a business standard license, essentially what you can do is you can download Office 365 apps directly onto your computer. Now, if you have a business basic license, you can still access the Office 365 apps, but only on the web. Alright, so in the next section, what we're going to be talking about is how exactly you can share files with OneDrive and SharePoint. Alrighty, so let's talk about how exactly we can share files with OneDrive and SharePoint. So one of the biggest questions I get a lot is what is the difference between OneDrive and SharePoint? And to put it simply, any file that's personal to you or not quite ready for collaboration should go inside your OneDrive. Everything else is going to go into SharePoint. And the reason why it's going to SharePoint is because SharePoint has a lot more tools when it comes to collaboration. But anyway, let's first look into OneDrive and see how we can share files. So I'm going to open it. And we briefly looked at it in the last section where the features were the same exact ways. You can upload new documents and you can upload folders or files from your own local computer. Now, when we want to share something, what you need to do is you can just simply click on the document you want to share. You can hover over it and you can see over here that there's this little box over here with an arrow sign. Another way you can access it is you can click on the document you want to share and you can click on share over here. So whenever we click on share, you're going to be introduced into this interface, and it has three important components. The first component is essentially the scope of people that you can share it to, and you can also configure this as well, and we're going to talk about that real soon. And when you specify the scope, then you specify specific people you want to share this document with, and you can also set the permission of what they can do with that document along with a message. Okay, so What it says in my scope is that I can do it with people within Datadog's SG. So if I went for Bunyar, which is indeed inside the organization, I can simply send that to them, set the permission, and we're ready to go. But if I decide to add someone random like henrylee213 at gmail.com, right, you're going to notice that it's going to throw me an error. It's going to say that this link won't work for people outside of your organization. So to fix this issue, all we have to do is change the scope. So we can configure that. I can click over here, and all I have to do is click on specific people. And you can see over here that we have other configurations as well. This one is probably the least restrictive, where you can send the link to anyone. But in our case, we're just going to send to specific people. And if I click on apply, then we don't face that error anymore. Okay, so you can just send that, and they're going to receive that link in their email where they can access the document. Another thing you can do is you can create a link. So for example, I can click on this, and you can see over here that I can copy this, send directly to that person, and I can also send directly in their Outlook, as you saw in the other one. Okay, so those are the major ways of how you share your documents or your folders as well. And it works the same exact way when it comes to using SharePoint. Another thing I also want to talk about before we go into SharePoint is you're going to notice this thing says my.sharepoint. So a way how you can think about it is that OneDrive is almost like a site within SharePoint. So if I go over to SharePoint over here and I click over, open this thing, you're going to see that we have multiple sites. And you can kind of think of OneDrive as just one of those sites within SharePoint. Okay, so to work with this, I'm going to be clicking on Microsoft 365, which I made specifically for this training. And this is what I mean why you want to put all of your other documents or folders inside your SharePoint. Because look, there's just a lot more features you can do. You can keep track of your pages, your site contacts, and then of course your documents as well, and just so much more. So in my case, I am going to go over to my documents, which you will have as well when you have your SharePoint, and I'm going to show you how you can share it. Okay, so it looks exactly the same when it comes to using OneDrive. You have your place to upload files, you have a place for you to add new files inside there, and then pretty much the sharing process is exactly like OneDrive. So I can hover over it, I can click on it over here and click on share, and then you're going to have that same interface where essentially you specify the scope, you specify the person you want to share it to, you set the permission, send a message, and then the process works the same exact way when you share it with them. All right. Okay, so now that we have some time, I want to talk a little bit about how Team works. And I already have a pre-open over here. So this is kind of a little bit confusing for people. Whenever they upload a new file into their Teams, they don't know exactly where it's being stored at. Okay, so just a brief idea of how Teams work. It's a way for you to make a very easy way to communicate with your teams, to work on projects. So inside here we have multiple teams, and those subsections of those teams are called channels. So the general Gamma Vita daily meetings are known as channels. And in each of these channels, you have a place for you to store different files. So in general, you can see I can store files inside here. And then you can see in my Gamma Vita daily meets, I can also store files as well. Now, the files that we have in here is actually being stored in SharePoint. If I go over to this three dots over here, you can see that by default, it stores in SharePoint. So if I open this over here, you're going to notice that it's going to redirect me back to that SharePoint site, and then I can see my files inside here. Okay, so anytime you share a file inside with your teams, you can just finally access that within the channel's name, or sorry, the team's name, and then you can see all of your different channel files. And again, just like how we worked with sharing on SharePoint, the process is the similar or the same exact process. You just simply click on that diagram with an arrow pointing out, or you can click on it and click on share, and then you can see these three things that pop up again. All right, so what we're going to be talking about in the next section is how we can sync our Microsoft 365 environment with our local computer, and we're going to be talking about this idea known as shortcut. So I'll see you in the next section. All right, so we're going to learn how to sync our Office 365 data and environment with our local computer. Now in this demonstration, I'm going to be using a Windows computer. If you're using a Mac, that's perfectly okay because the process is relatively the same. Now, In order to do this step, you're going to need to have OneDrive installed to your computer. If you don't have it, that's perfectly okay because you can install it online. If you already have a Windows 10 computer, then OneDrive should already be installed. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open OneDrive, and I have it right here. So we already went through the interface, but one button I didn't talk about is this thing called Sync. And really what this does is it syncs all of your data that's inside your OneDrive, including your files and folders, and it puts it into your local computer. And it's that simple. So I can just simply click on this over here, and you can see that it's going to tell me to open my Microsoft OneDrive. And if you give it a few moments, it is going to have the sign-in page that's going to pop up. And because I clicked the sync button in my own account, you're going to see it automatically sets up Henry at Datadog's SG. So all I have to do is click on sign in, and you're going to see that it's going to transfer all those files into my computer, and it's going to set a location for myself to access those files. So if you give it a few moments, you can see that it gave me a location like so. And then in the next section, oh, and the reason why this thing pops up is because I have already done this before. But what I'm going to do is click on use this folder because I trust Microsoft of where they're going to put my folder at. Okay, so while we wait for this thing to load, it's going to basically discuss the different types of features you can do with OneDrive. So just give it a few moments. Okay, so one of the things it's going to talk about is the idea that you can drag or move your folders in OneDrive. So when you actually eventually have your files and folders inside your file explorer, what's going to be happening is that you don't have to keep it within the designated folder that Microsoft gave you. You can move it around for your own convenience. The second one is that just like how you can share files on your OneDrive and SharePoint online, you can do the same thing on your file explorer. And then this right here is very important because it represents the status of your file. So this may not make sense so far, so I'm going to give you a demonstration after this, but the basic idea is that whenever you see a file with a cloud, that indicates that the file is going to be on the cloud, but it doesn't take space on your computer in the meantime. But if you double click on it, it's going to download that file and place it inside your computer. And then what this green outline checkmark represents is essentially that the file does exist on your computer, but it's not guaranteed to be available at all times. And then over here, you're going to see that we have this green check mark over here, or not green check mark, but this very green background check mark. And what this means is that whenever your computer has the chance to have internet, it's going to automatically sync that specific file and add it to your computer. All right, so let's skip all these steps and let's talk about what I meant by the statuses. So inside here, you're going to notice immediately that I have the cloud and I have the little green outline, and I'm going to show you how we can get that green background check mark as well. So what I meant by this is that currently right now we can see that these files do exist, but they only exist inside the cloud. So if I want to have it on my local computer, all I have to do is simply double click on it. And you're going to see that it's going to download, and we have this little green check mark. Now again, that green check mark over there represents that the file does exist on our current local computer, but it's not guaranteed to be available at all times. So if we want to make it available at all times, all we have to simply do is we can right click it and we can click on always keep on this device. So now when we do it this way, whenever our computer has the opportunity to sync and we don't have that file, it's automatically going to sync that particular file like so. And if you don't want it anymore, you can simply right click it again and click on free up space. And you can see that it's going to leave it back into a green checkmark or a cloud. All right, so that's the basic idea with OneDrive, and I think so, while we're actually at it, you can also share inside this environment as well. So if I wanted to share, for example, my different time zone support, I can simply right click, and you're going to see that we're going to have this button over here, or this little link that says share. You can click on that, and doesn't this look like the same as almost like the web? You can see we have the almost a very similar interface where we can actually change up the scope of who we're going to communicate with, be very specific to the people that we want to send this file to, and then we can set the permission and message and so on. So the process is exactly the same. Okay, so now that we know how we can sync with our OneDrive, what I want to know is how exactly we can sync our SharePoint files. So I'm going to go back into our Microsoft 365. I'm going to click on SharePoint over here, And I'm going to be using that Microsoft training site that I just recently created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be clicking on this course over here, and you're going to notice that the process is very similar. Remember, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but inside the documents as well, remember it looks exactly like OneDrive. So it's also going to contain that sync button as well. So if I go over to documents over here, and we're just going to give this a few moments just to load really quick. I apologize for my slow computer in the meantime. Okay, so what you're going to notice is that we also have the sync button over here. And you can see that we have quite a few files inside this Microsoft 365 training. If I want to sync it to my environment, well, you guessed it, all I have to do is click on sync. And when I click on sync over there, it's going to do the same process where I open my Microsoft Drive, and I'm going to say use this folder because I have already created it already. So I'm going to click on use this folder. And because I already signed in, it's not going to tell me to sign in again. So it's just going to continue to add those folders into my File Explorer. Okay, so now that it's completed, once that thing has popped off, now if I go over to my OneDrive, and you can click on your cloud over here, because once you actually connect or sync with your OneDrive, you're going to have this cloud that you have access to. So I'm going to click on this over here, and I'm going to say open folder. Okay, so this is where things get interesting, because now you see that I have my own OneDrive, right? This is my personal OneDrive, and then after we connected with that SharePoint, you're going to notice that now we have this little office buildings. So this office building essentially holds all of your SharePoint data, like all the files that are being collaborated with everyone else. So, I mean, that makes a little bit sense, because the reason why it's just a single cloud is because that's your own personal OneDrive or your own personal files. Whenever you see this business over there, it represents all the files that are being collaborated with other people. So remember how I actually had that Microsoft 365 training? Well, I added inside there. All right. And again, just to reiterate, the process is very similar. If I were to go over here, and you can see that the files are all there. Let me see if I can find one that actually does have a file inside there. Apparently it doesn't. Okay, so let me go over here. There you go. Okay, so you can see that we have a file that's located inside here. And what I can do is actually share this as well, as usual, which is we have that little share link that we can click. And then you can see that the process is similar, where currently this file does exist on my computer. And if I want to make sure it exists at all times, again, you can right click and click on the, oh, let me right click on that again. And then you can click on always keep on this device. Okay, so that's the basic idea. We talked about how you can sync your OneDrive. We talked about how you can sync your SharePoint. And remember, because Microsoft Teams uses SharePoint as the backend, you just do the same process if you want to download files from Microsoft Teams. Now, one of the things I want to get at is this idea known as a shortcut. So currently right now at the moment, what we talked about was this idea that all your personal OneDrive goes inside here, your OneDrive Datadog.sg in my case, and then all your SharePoint files go inside this office building. But what happens if you want to have, let's say, a shortcut or a link that is inside your OneDrive Datadog.sg? Like, let's say, for example, over here, that you want to have one of your SharePoint files be in this location in your own OneDrive. Well, if you want to do it that way, you can use something known as a shortcut. And what a shortcut is essentially a pointer. So it's not going to sync it all in your area. It's just going to simply point at the file where you can actually click on it. Sounds confusing, but let me actually demonstrate how you work with this. So since I already used Microsoft 365 training, the thing about it is that Microsoft 365 training, or anytime you want to sync a SharePoint, there's only two options you can do. You can either sync it or you can do add shortcut to OneDrive. But unfortunately, you can't do both because it means that the file already exists. So in this case, I can't do Microsoft 365 training anymore because I already synced it. So I'm going to go use another site. So in this case, I'll just go completely back, start fresh new. I'm going to open up my SharePoint. And what I'm going to want to do is I want to go to my admin support. So this is something that I haven't had on, or I haven't synced quite yet. So if I go over here and I click on documents like so, I am now going to be clicking on the button that says shortcut in OneDrive. And you just need to give this thing a quick moment. Sorry about the lag. Alright, so you can see right now I have 2 folders inside there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Add Shortcut to OneDrive, and check this out. Immediately when I click on this over here, you're going to notice that it is going to add that shortcut to my OneDrive. And while this thing is loading, what's going to be happening is inside here, and it says it's all done already. So let's just look at it right now. So if I open my file inside here, my folder, what you're going to notice inside here is I don't see it right now, but the basic idea of what's supposed to happen, and I think I need to refresh this a little bit because it's going to take some time. Basically what's happening is it's going to add a pointer inside there. Now the thing about Microsoft 365 is it does take some time for the thing to sync. So let me first show it to you what it looks like on the web, because the process is very similar. So if I go over to my OneDrive, what you're going to notice is that I'm going to have that shortcut that I just recently created in my OneDrive. So inside here, you're going to see that I have that shortcut that was created a minute ago, and you can see that it was shared from the admin and support. And if we just give it a few moments, it should be able to sync everything completely. So you can see right there, it says it's up to date. So now if I open my folder now, we should be able, okay, there you go, you see it? So you can see that now we create a shortcut. So normally whenever you sync with your SharePoint, it goes under this Office building over here. But if you want to simply create a shortcut to that SharePoint folder, you can actually do it like so. And again, it doesn't mean that it's being synced inside your OneDrive, it just simply acts like a pointer. Anyway, those are the basic ideas of how to sync your own local environment to your local computer, or sorry, your Microsoft 365 environment to your local computer. So I'll see you guys next time if you guys need support.